Okay, apologies for the sniffling, but I have a horrific cold. Now I'm doing this because I've reworked these units. This is my one. Units 2, 3 and 4. When I pulled them out and plugged them in to run a test on them this week, they wouldn't calibrate. They completely failed, and it seemed it was due to how the reference coils were installed. I potted them with epoxy adhesive, and I think that had actually damaged the coils. On review of the coils and how they work, I did sort of some testing of them and graphing them, just different coil types, because there's lots of different reference coil potential types. So in terms of their cores, so we've got one core type, another potential core type, yet another potential type, and this one's the one that I had been commonly using. So yeah, basically a variety of core types, and I thought, well, if I'm going to have to redo the reference coils on those units, I may as well do some testing. So I've literally turned this one into a testing one, where I can just screw in and out, swap in and out the reference coil, so I don't have to solder it in and out. Did do some extensive testing, which I've just completed, and on the basis of that, I've come up with a different approach. Actually, where's my... Yep. So the outcome, just looking at the different signals from the different core types and the different inductances. And yeah, I've come up with this, and I think this one's going to be more stable because it doesn't rely on it at all. It's actually a completely capacitive reference, so no coils for the reference. If you hear some giggling, that's my daughter. Now this is a first run test of it, so I've got some 155 grain burgers and 30 cal, and I'm just going to run through them. I've got some 22 JLKs I'll run through after, and this is it. So I'll turn it on to bring it to the backstop. If we haven't seen how that works, I've just sort of moved it forward, but it'll pull itself back onto the backstop, and it seems to be rotating cleanly. So I'll stop it now and hit calibrate. This unit's got the heater on. It's been warming up for a bit. The heater really just is to help accelerate the warm up. It's not necessary, but yeah, it's good to actually get it going. It'll warm up. The heater's set to about 1000, but it's saying here the temperature inside is 1500. That's its own unit. That's reading directly off the analog to digital converter. It's not any sort of special thing. So let's get on with this. So we'll 0 and 18. We'll go with 19. So, pull back, 0. Oh, that one's jumping. Go 56. Let's just... I'll go with 19 again. I'm inclined to go with... I want to go with 20, but I'll just put 19. It is kind of settling at that higher value of 26. So it's probably the start. I kind of stop it after I know it's rotated once or twice, but letting it go a little bit, you don't want to just sit there and let it go, because eventually noise and that will just have it creep way beyond where you want it to be. So see, 30, 31, I'll go with that. It's more, well, as you can see from that one, I just wait until I get a number that looks like it's initially stable, and you go with that. So you know it's starting to creep up, but we'll... This one, not too sure about. Actually, these projectiles are a bit, they've been sitting in the box on their own for a while, so they might actually be a bit dirty, so I'll just clean that off. Put it on again. Yeah, that seemed to be a bit more, I can hear that going, it's rubbing on it. All good. So that stabilized a lot better. It was a lot less fussy. So giving a little wipe off. So I'll go with 12 for that. It's kind of where it stabilized before it crept up to 13. Okay, I'll go with 40. Yeah, these are getting some tarnish on them. They're a bit old, but these are my standard ones that I use for all my tests. 17. Let's just have a look again. 16. Now you notice that jumped twice, and it's a bit because the measurement actually goes down, and then it has to sort of rotate all the way around before it hits the up part and goes. So if I was to draw that, the reading might be there, but it might start here. It's got to read down, and then it's got to wait until it gets back up before it suddenly jumps up to this. And so it has to add the first part, and then it has to add the second part to get the total. And that's why the first part was at reading this, and the second part was at reading that. And that's just on its rotation. So this bit here is the first half of the projectile, and this bit here is the second half. So that's kind of why you'll see the values do what they do. So I got that one, I declared it. See, it hasn't budged beyond 21. 43, 47, 44, 45. I'm going with 44. I'm comfortable with that. And lucky last. Interesting. Let's just give that a clean. Just clean it off with my fingers. 13 to 15. 15. I'm going with 15. So there we have, if it's visible, the readings I've got for JLKs. Does indicate that probably the 56, the 40 and the 44 are a bit questionable, but most of them pretty good. So now we'll go with the JLKs, and these are a lot more tarnished. So I'll put that on, get it to pull back to the stop, which is now done. Turn it off. Do not calibrate while it's spinning, or you're trying to calibrate to a moving target. Okay. Not sure about that tick. Or is this one I put a mark on? Because it does have a Sharpie dot on it. Oh, I think there's a tick on the back. Anyway. So 68, 68. Notice the numbers are a lot bigger for this. The 22s, they sit a lot closer to the sensor. So the measurements won't scale. So 14, I'll say. I'll go with 47. 31. 65. Now, all these machines all do the same thing. The longer you leave them, the bigger the variation is going to be. Some that just, rotate once or whatever and then stop. They're kind of missing things. You might have a small variation that actually I'll do it by diagram in a second. So 61, let's go with 61 or 62 actually, because it jumped cleaner to 60, and look, now it's pretty stable on that. I'm pretty comfortable with that. Now with respect to letting it rotate a few times, so if I've got, and hopefully this will show up, but if I've got a projectile and it has, I'll put a floor there, all right, as it's spinning round over the sensor, right, that might appear and disappear quicker than the unit can measure. It might sort of detect it. That might cause it to spike up to, say, the 68 for the 22s, right? It might cause it to spike a bit, but it might only manage to get up to 47 before it gets cut off. And so it might actually take it rotating around a second time before it gets a big enough picture of what's there to actually make it that 68. So yeah, it's one of the things, you can't just do one rotation, one rotation, one rotation and call it done. Although you probably can, but you can't actually derive anything off that. So if you were to actually compare the three and try and come up with like a standard deviation and whatnot, it just doesn't work, because each rotation has its own variances in it depending upon where it takes those measurements. All right. So that's that. That's this unit, the 3 unit. That's my unit there. I've got my test unit, and yeah, this is a completely capacitive reference rather than an inductive reference that I was attempting to use before. Now with the original models, yeah, I never had any issues with them, but with this one it just seems that it doesn't like, well, it's actually better. I think it's more stable. Inductors are very temperature sensitive, so this will actually probably work out for the best doing it this way. So we'll see how we go. And yeah, that's my update on how these are going. Thank you for listening.